course, you're blazing with the 95, right? When you hear the theme song, you know we've got some info for you, so let's get right to it, all right? Our current communications companies, they utilize wires and cables to get the job done, right? We know this. However, a new player has entered in the market, and their method of delivery showcases an interesting and different kind of technology. So we've got on the phone lines Mr. Brian Bennett-Easy, who is the Managing Director of Neptune Communications, and he'll be talking to us today about how it all works, right? Because we use the wires and cables, so he's going to clear it up for us. He's going to say, he's going to tell us all about it. Good morning to you, Brian. How you doing?
Morning, Kevin. How are you, man? Good morning, listeners.
I am here, you know. Good to go. So we may have heard the term before. We may have heard the name before, that is. Neptune Communications. What is it all about? What do you do?
All right. Neptune is a telecommunications company that delivers solutions basically to businesses and governments across the Caribbean using satellite. The focus right now is on doing things a little bit differently from what's traditionally done. You mentioned earlier, you know, using wires and cables and fiber and all of that.
Right.
We're not focused on competing in that space at all. I think most people would recognize that, you know, the pandemic has kind of painted a different kind of picture on internet and connectivity. You know, especially when you really need it. There are periods when you have literally no service. It could be because of congestion on the network. It could be a whole bunch of different factors. Now, what we're looking to do is to bridge that gap. You know, when you actually need the service is there.
Right.
It's literally almost like buying an internet insurance or connectivity insurance. You know, most people who drive cars, you know, you probably cost every year about, you know, having to pay this insurance premium. And when you get yourself into an accident is when you recognize that you actually really need insurance. That is kind of where we slot in. You know, we're all about ensuring that your business is always on, always connected to the services that you provide, always connected to your customers.
Right. And you know what? I'll tell you this, Brian. I'm tired of dodging the cable. You know, them always tell you, don't damage the cable, the fiber. Don't make sure nothing don't happen to it, right? Tired of that too, boys. So if you're going to eliminate that altogether, then we need to have a talk, right?
Yeah, man. But let me just say this though. Satellite technology is not necessarily for everybody. You have a lot of that you use in your daily life that use satellite technology and the things that we take for granted. So a lot of people now have sports watches. You know, it's the latest thing when you're going running or whatever it is. You can track your distance and your calories and all of those things. A lot of people don't recognize that the watch, in order for the watch to track your distance, it has to use satellite tech. You know, the GPS unit in your car is satellite technology. Satellites have been around since 1957. Believe it or not, it was actually the Soviet Union that launched the first man-made satellite in late 1957. The technology has been around for a while. What has happened in the last maybe 5 to 10 years is there's now a focus from a lot of big players, and some of the names you guys will probably recognize. You know, SpaceX, for argument's sake, is looking to put something like 40,000 satellites in space, literally covering the entire planet. So what that means is countries that, you know, have people spread out all over the place, it's not practical for your telecommunications companies to run fiber or cable, especially if you're running over, you know, hundreds of miles with no potential customers at all. Okay. You know, what you're gonna hear about is, boy, you know, poor return on the investment, and it don't make any sense. Satellite kind of cuts out all of that because there are no cables, no wires. You get full coverage. As it stands right now, we got our license from the OER to operate in middle of May. And the satellites that we have access to cover all of Jamaica already.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, man. So right now we're focused on, you know, just setting up the operation, making sure that we have the right people on board. You know, all our sales guys have completed training and they're now engaging customers actively, working with a couple local solution integrators. People will come to your property and deploy antennas and connect back into your system. Okay. So we're kind of those slowly phasing ourselves into the market.
Well, all right. Tell me this now. Potential clients out there, somebody's listening and saying, interesting, I should check this out. What do we need to utilize your service?
Well, all of the equipment that you need, we're going to provide. So basically, we put an antenna on your roof. The antenna is connected to a modem. our engineers will, align the antenna, because the antenna has to be pointing at a specific satellite. And then there are different service packages that we can configure depending on your need, and depending on how much you feel like spending. Because while it's cost effective, it's not necessarily cheap. So the service as it stands right now is not necessarily for everybody. And the focus right now is really on government and enterprise agencies. So people who have to remain connected all the time. I don't know how many people have tried to perhaps log on to a website to pay a bill and it's down because the provider has lost connectivity. That's what we're trying to prevent. A small service package, can mean the difference between either making $1 million or losing $1 million, and that's what we're trying to prevent.
Okay. All right. So the service is up and running to anybody who wants it, you said, or it's just to go?
Yeah, man. No, man. The service is up and running. You can have a conversation with our sales reps.
All right.
There's an email address, sales@neptunecommunications.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can send an email to that email address, and one of the sales guys would respond, and they're very, very responsive. So you more than likely would get a proposal back to you within 2 or 3 hours.
Hours, you said? Because I was going to ask you.
Yeah, man. Not these.
Some people worry about sending emails because it might just get lost in the matrix.
No, not at all. Remember, when you walk into an insurance company and you pay your premium, they're going to give you a quotation right away. So look, you tell them how much your car is valid or whatever your property is valid, and you get back a quote, and the man say, here it is. Here's what you need to do in order to execute this particular policy. It's pretty much the same thing.
Okay.
The service packages are defined. We are able to customize the packages, and we are working on a whole bunch of different engagements with a number of the large satellite providers across the globe as well. Because one of the things that we don't want to do is we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. And if there's an issue with a particular satellite, it means that we cannot give a customer a service.
Right.
These satellites aren't owned by our company. Essentially what we do is we have commercial arrangements with a number of the larger providers on the globe, and conversations are ongoing.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Sounds promising.
And the technology is changing. As I said, people will start recognizing some of the noise in the market, because you do hear about SpaceX and you hear about companies like that. OneWeb and all these companies that are providing services, especially to consumers. The end user who wants to cut off all of those cables. I think a lot of people will recognize as well that the problems that we have in the Caribbean maybe aren't unique across the globe, but I feel we have more people knocking down light poles and and things than anybody else. And every time a light pole goes down, there's a very strong possibility that you may lose service in a particular area.
Yeah.
We have hurricanes, we have earthquakes, we have all kind of things that cause communication failure, and that's kind of where we come in. We're bridging that gap between you losing service and you being constantly on all the time. And I know that there are questions about the resilience of the technology, but I think one thing that people have to bear in mind: when you launch a satellite is anywhere from 160 kilometers to something like 32,000 miles above the Earth. You can't drive up there and fix a satellite.
Right.
So the technology has to be very, 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 very robust.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Well, give them the email address again. It's not a phone number to call, right? Email only?
No, it's sales@neptunecommunications.com.
Right.
The preference is for email right now because it gives us an audit trail. People can not answer phones, or you may have lines that are busy, and what we don't want to do is we don't want to disenfranchise any particular customer. And I guarantee you, once an email comes in, your email will be responded to very, very quickly.
All right. Well, before you go, I see a message here on the WhatsApp line that just came in. Somebody's asking, does weather affect the connectivity?
The technology has changed. The impact of weather is not as big as it used to be. I'm not going to tell you that weather will not affect you, because if you're in a category 3 hurricane, firstly, I wouldn't be sitting in the office, trying to check the connection if it works or not. But the technology has changed over the last, I would say, 10 to 15 years. Okay. And what happens is that they've used different components to mitigate the impact of weather. And I think what your caller is referring to is there's a perception that when it rains, you lose service. That's not true. But for me to tell you that you may not have some service degradation depending on the type of rainfall. I mean, you guys would remember maybe about 2 years ago we had some crazy rain. You may not completely lose service. There will be service, but the service may be a little bit degraded. Right. But that's I think that's only in the most extreme cases.
Okay, not so much a yes or no question, right? But
no. And there are ways of kind of navigating all of that. You use what are they called? There's a particular component that determines the power that your antenna receives signals from the satellite. And the more the power the more power that is pushed by that particular component. It's the least amount of impact that you will have from a weather event. Well, as I said, the technology has changed. 15, 20 years ago, you were only talking about what are called geo satellites. These are satellites that are 32,000 miles away. Now you're talking about satellites that are 160, to 2,000 kilometers up. So the throughput, as in the bandwidth that you get, the speeds that you get are much better, and the impact of weather is much less than that what were 15, 20 years ago. The technology has changed. A man like Elon Musk and Tesla and SpaceX, wouldn't be spending millions of dollars to invest in this kind of technology. I think in the last 4 years maybe, you have had almost 1,000 satellites being launched. Right now, I think there are close to 5,000 satellites in orbit. Okay.
And as you said before, you're not putting all the eggs in one basket, so...
No, not at all.
All right. We got to run, Brian. We got some time signal business to handle.
Yes,
we've got to do. Thank you very much for taking some time today to kind of enlighten our darkness, right?
No problem, brother.
All right, we've been talking to Mr. Brian Bennett-Easy, Managing Director, Neptune Communications. All right, Brian, have a good one. Catch up with you, all right?
Take care, man. Thank you.